Good morning. This will be VirtualPBX -admin training.
VirtualPBX.
I'll give people another minute or so just to join us if they're going to. And generally speaking, we'll be here every Tuesday at 10 a.m. Pacific time. We do record these, so if you happen to miss a session that you wanted to go into, or you simply can't stay for the entire session, you can come back to this channel and view the recorded training, as well as the previous week's recording. Although last week there were some technical issues going on, so that one probably isn't the best one to watch. Additionally, if you have any questions, feel free to make use of the chat, and I will try to answer them as I see them, and backtrack if necessary if I didn't see it at the time, or for whatever feature was requested about. All right, so here we have our dash login page. This is at dash.virtualpbx.com. You can also navigate here via the virtualpbx.com website. If you mouse over support, it's essentially a pull down, but basically the banner expands, and one of the options there is the dash login. To log in, we need your email address, which is your username, your password, and then the account name, typically your company name. If for some reason you don't have this information, or especially your password, or you simply forgot, down here to the bottom right, just above the sign-in bar, is the Forgot Your Info link. If you click on that, we still need your email address. Right, that's your username. But then we need either the account name or a company phone number. Right, so one of the phone numbers your customers call to get to your account. And then you would click Reset Password. You'll get an email. It'll have a link. You click on the link. It will take you to where you can update your password. Once you update your password, the system's going to log you out. Put you back here, so you can then enter your password, but most importantly, it gives you the option to click on the Remember Me box, so that way you don't have to keep typing it in. And then we'll go ahead and get signed in. Now I'm using a test account that's been around for 6 or so years, so when I first log in, it's going to take me right to the dashboard. For those of you with new accounts, or if it's your first time signing in, you actually will be taken to your account page, which you can always get to by clicking on your name up here at the top. And here, this is where you would change your own personal email address or password. Right? You can change your time zone, your date and time view. Now, I'm an admin, so I have access to the account level settings over here to the left. And once that loads, and the main thing that's changed here is the time zone, right? Just to make sure your company's in the correct time zone. If you do change your account name, you're going to want to make sure to notify our billing team. There's other things they have to adjust on their side, just to make sure everything syncs properly. Now, on your accounts, underneath where it says user on the left, you'll have another section for billing related information. So this is where you would find things like your service plan. You can see your invoices. You can update your credit card information, and you can update the billing contact, right, the overall owner of the account. When you're done here, click on the close box over here to the right. And I should point out that first time you log in, the wizard pops up, so it has little pop-up windows highlighting these different features. The same thing will happen when you get back here to the dashboard, is a little pop-up will come up showing you or highlighting different features. So as I said, up here at the top where your name is, you can click here. You can always get back to the account screen. Many of you will have another icon here for DND, or Do Not Disturb. If it's all black with a little bit of white, like a gray outline, it's not enabled. If you see white, right, so it's moved over to the right, there's a white dot, that means you have enabled Do Not Disturb on your user, meaning calls are not going to come to you. Right? They'll go to your voicemail or not be offered if you're in an ACD queue. And the reason I don't actually have them here is because my user is also in an ACD queue, and that's been removed for any user that's in an ACD queue to avoid problems with ACD queue calls. Then we've got the little help icon here, little question mark. So first is chat with us, right? It opens up a chat window. You can speak to a support representative and they can walk you through one of the features you're working on. Learn more, this will open up a new tab and take you to the support pages. So then you can look at the guide you want to look at. There's also, some of the guides also have linked videos that are also here on our YouTube channel. We've got the online store. This takes you to store.virtualpbx.com where you can order things like a VoIP phone or a router. Excuse me. This blank space here can sometimes have the web phone link. So web phone is a kind of soft phone, right? And they're both VoIP devices. So VoIP stands for Voice over Internet Protocol. Basically, it just means you use your internet connection to make and receive calls. That's what VoIP is for. The web phone lets you use Chrome or Firefox on a laptop or desktop computer, right? So the computer versions, not the mobile versions of those apps, to then make and receive calls over your internet connection. Now we've got the 3 horizontal line or hamburger icon. It's the menu icon. This takes you to other parts of Dash or other features of Dash. We're on Dashboard, which is the core or main feature of Dash. And then here to the right, you've got the logout icon. Down here on the left, we have various other aspects of the dashboard, which we'll be going through in detail. Here in the middle, we've got total users, right? I've got 20 of them. These are people who make and receive calls. If I'm on a per user plan, that means each user I add, it's going to increase my bill. Obviously, each user I remove lowers my bill. Then we've got total devices. I have 43, and then we have a breakdown. So first up is cell phone, pretty self-explanatory. Right. Then we got the web phone, which we were just talking about. The soft phone, so these are not web phones, right? So differentiation there. This can be for the VirtualPBX soft phone application. This can be for another cell phone that you're using from another company. Right? Say you're using one of the soft phone applications from Counterpath. This could also denote a VoIP phone that wasn't auto-provisionable. Which, speaking of, is right here, SIP phone. So SIP is a subtype of VoIP phone, right? So VoIP phones, that's that general broad category, covers everything that uses the internet to make and receive calls. Right. SIP phone is a physical phone, sits on a desk. Right. We support Yealink, Polycom, and a couple other manufacturers. And it's a subtype, right? There's other versions of VoIP phones on the market. So if you're out shopping or just online shopping, you want to look for a SIP compatible or compliant phone. And obviously you'd prefer to get one of the phones that support auto provision. And then we've got Landline, pretty self-explanatory. Notice down here, I have unregistered devices, and I have 16 of them. So Dash knows when VoIP phones are registered to it, right? Connected, right? Basically, that's what that means. Basically, the VoIP device contacts us over the internet, says, yes, I'm working, boom, it establishes connection, and now that phone is registered. So what it's telling me right here is I have 16 phones that aren't working, right? We can't send calls to it. Now, that can be something as simple as someone hasn't logged into their cell phone application yet, right? Or they moved the VoIP phone, right? Let's say they moved their Cisco phone, and they haven't plugged it back in yet, right? So it's not registered. Now, it can be something more complicated, right? It could be there's a router issue or a network issue of some type. Maybe their ISP is having a problem. Next, we have total phone numbers. I have 30. Your plans include anywhere from, I believe it's 2 to 15 phone numbers as part of your monthly plan price. I'm obviously over that. Anytime you go over, you are subject to overcharge based on a per phone number basis. I believe it's $4.99 per month per phone number, but that may vary depending on your plan, and especially on the older plans. If you're not sure or you want to verify what that might be for your account, you're going to want to contact our account services team. They can verify the plan and version of the plan that you're on and what the overages would be for extra phone numbers. All right, so then we got a breakdown here of assigned numbers and spare numbers. An assigned number means I'm using it, right? It's one of my main numbers you see over there to the right, or it's a number that goes directly to one of my staff members, or to an ACD queue, or to a ring group, etc. It's in some fashion being used. People can call it and connect it in some fashion. Right. Spare number, that means it's a number on my account, so it counts towards my allotment. I'm currently just not using it, right? That can be, I had a special promotion running, it ended, and I just want to stop getting calls on that phone number. I unassign it from where it was. That puts it in a spare number category. And now when people try to call it, they don't get through. Right? It could be, I got like 10 numbers that were in sequence, and I just haven't gotten to the last one yet, or the last couple. All right, next breakdown, USDID versus US toll-free. It's actually US Canada toll-free, right? An 800 number. 888, all the way down to 833 currently. Right. USDID, that just means a US local number, right? So you have a number in San Diego, California, or you have a number in, say, Dallas, Texas, or where have you. You can have international phone numbers. If you're interested in getting an international phone number, you want to email our porting team. That's porting at virtualpbx.com. And they need to know the city and country that you're interested in getting a phone number in. And they will let you know if there's additional requirements. Right? Some countries require more information about before they release a number. Others don't care. All right, conference bridges. This means I have enabled the conference bridge feature on 8 of my users, meaning 8 people are hosting or moderating conferences. Over here to the top right, we've got my main numbers. So these 3 numbers, they all behave the same way. Okay? So they're all going to the same location. They all have the same main greeting. Next up, we have the conference room number. You can have multiple conference room numbers if you want. This is the phone number everyone dials to get you to conference, whether they're your staff members, right? They have their user on your account, or they're one of your vendors or customers. Fax box number, you can have just the one. This enables faxing on the account, and this is your inbound fax box number, or your inbound fax number. All right, company directory. This download link is a text file, and it has your users with their extension numbers. The soft phone directory. This is for use with the VirtualPBX desktop soft phone application. So you download this file and then you upload it to the soft phone application, and then you can see the presence or the status of everyone else or all your other users that are making use of the VirtualPBX desktop soft phone application, right? So little green phone icon means they're available. So I could call my coworker Mike, and we can talk about a feature that's coming out that we need to create some documentation for example. Likewise, if they're red and the phone icon's red, that means they're on a call, so there's no point in me trying to call them because they're already on a call. All right, next up we got the store discount code. So just for being a Dash customer, you get a discount on anything in the online store at the store.virtualpbx.com. And then lastly here we have the account realm. This is used in a couple things. If you're using a third-party soft phone, it's one of the 3 key pieces of information that we provide that you need to use to program that application, or phone if you're using a third-party phone. And it's also used for faxing out. So on Dash currently, to send a fax out, you create an email, right? So you use the email address used for your login, right? You create an email from that email address, In the to field of the email, you put the plus sign, the number 1, and then the telephone and the area code and telephone number that you're faxing to, the @ symbol, and then your account realm. And then you simply attach a PDF or TIFF file and click send. Okay. Up here at the top, we have the company caller ID. Now, the streaming software is preventing the pull down from showing, but you can choose any of your main numbers, and that becomes your default outbound caller ID for your VoIP phone users. And then you have the company caller ID name, referred to as CNAME. This allows you to input up to 15 characters, including spaces and special characters. After you click Save Changes down here at the bottom, that information gets transmitted out to the other carriers who support CNAME, and they'll update their servers. It takes about 3 business days. Can be a little faster, but it's just safer to bank on the 3. Now, once any of your VoIP phone users pick up their phone, they make an outbound call, by default, this phone number will show up as the outbound caller ID, and we also will send out this CNAME information. Now, that information travels along the route that the call takes to its destination. That call can go through several different carriers. Not every carrier supports CNAME, so that means your CNAME information may not reach your destination. On top of that, the device that you're calling, whatever network they're on, that carrier has final say about whatever shows up on their phone's displays, whether it's a cell phone, landline, a VoIP phone, whatever display is available, right? They have full control over what shows up there. So, if for instance that carrier doesn't support CNAME, then your company name isn't going to show up, right? Cell phone carriers, especially, they're the ones who put up the spam risk, telemarketer. They have control over that. Now, if that keeps happening, we can get call samples from you, and we can double check on the back end. There's a new service or regulation, I guess, called Stir Shaken, so we can get your phone numbers or make sure your phone numbers are verified. They already should be, but we can go through a process to escalate it and hopefully get that corrected. All right. Then we got the company emergency information, E911. You want to put an address here that's associated with this phone number. So each of your phone numbers can have a different address associated with it. And that way, when your VoIP phone users pick up their phone and dial 911, the proper address is shown. And then you click on Save Changes. Next up, we have hold music. So Dash supports hold music, and it's defined as once a call has reached a user and the user has pressed hold on their VoIP phone. That's when hold music will play. You can upload your own file, and then you would just click Browse here. Dash will accept .wav, .wav, .mp3, and .ogg files. You want to make sure they're recorded in mono, not in stereo, and that they're under 1 megabyte in file size. And then you would click the little up arrow here, and then click on Save Changes. Right, hours is actually part of main number, and instead of skipping around in main number, we're just going to go right to main number and work our way down. The main number page can take a little while to load sometimes, mostly because there's a lot of information here. All right, so at the top, we've got our main company numbers. Right, so as I mentioned before, all these numbers, they're all coming to the same location. They're all going to have the same main greeting. If I decide I don't want to use one of these numbers any longer, I can just click the red and white unassign button here. And now that moves it to a spare number. Any place you can assign a number, right? So to a user, to a group, or a queue, you'll typically have these options. So add from spare numbers. If you have existing spare numbers, you can choose one of them and put a little check mark here, and then add the selected number. So then it would show up here. You also have the option to buy numbers. So for toll-free, right? You choose the toll-free prefix you want to work with. You click search, and then you look for a number that you like. You just click add. Notice it adds it to the cart, and it actually repeats the number here. You have the option to delete. And then you would click by numbers. You can add multiple at once. You don't have to do one at a time. You can do 5 or more if you wanted to. Right now, the system was verifying that the number was truly available and then adding it to the account. So that list is dynamic. It can be, so if, say there's 20 people happening to be adding a number and a couple of you choose it at the same time, only one of you is getting that number. For local numbers, you have to know the area code you're looking in. Right, so you can do 310, it's a LA area code, and there's nothing available. Now this will happen occasionally, especially on the, I think it's like 47 or 48 original area codes that were created back in the late 40s. Right? Because of mobile devices, there are a lot more phone numbers in use. So what this happens is you want to go back and you want to look up an overlay for that area code. So like 323 is a nearby LA area code. And you see here I have many numbers to choose from. And it's the same process beyond that, right? I just add the number, hit by numbers, the system's activating it. Now, if you come across a set of area codes where we don't have any numbers, right? So you look for all the overlays and nothing comes up, you can email our porting team and see if we can back order a number for you. The downside of that, we don't know when or if we're ever going to get a number, right? So someone has to give up a number in that area code before we get one. You can always contact a local carrier. Like if you already have service with someone locally, they probably have a greater selection. So then you can get a number from them and then you can port the number to us. All right, so any number, you can get to this little gear icon here. This is where you can update the caller ID for a specific phone number, as well as turn on the ability to accept inbound CNAME information. So it shows up on your staff members' VoIP phones. All right, here's where you would adjust the E911 for a specific phone number. So that way different phone numbers can have different addresses. Prepend is a VoIP feature. Basically, it allows you to type text in front of the caller ID that shows up on your VoIP phone's displays. Basically, to give your staff members a heads up about what the call might be about. So I can type this. These characters would then show up on my users' VoIP phones. So then, oh, it's about the new promotion. Now, if at any time I can, again, decide, oh, I don't want to use this number after all, and now it's not one of my main numbers. All right, next up, we have the office hours strategy. This is where the hours link would have taken us. For new accounts, you start off at 24-hour open office, meaning your system's ready to take calls. Up to you if you want to keep it that way, or you can choose custom office hours. For each day of the week that you're open, you want to put a check mark in front of the day. And then here to the right, in these boxes, you put your open hours in 24-hour or military time. Obviously, if you don't check mark it, that means you're closed. You also have the option at the very bottom, which I don't know if it's showing up properly, but it allows you to say you're closed for your lunch hours. Right? So put a check mark in front of that if you are, and then submit your lunch hours, and then you click on Save Changes. And I need to turn off the device. That keeps beeping at me. All right. Next up, we have office holidays. If you're closed for holidays, put a check mark in front of it. Then you have your option over here on the right under Add Holiday. You have single day date range, and advanced. Each one of those creates a new row. Oops. Let's bring that back. All right. So single day is like I have here for President's Day. So you give it a name, you choose the month and the day. Right. You would click on Save Changes. Date range, up here for Christmas. Right. Start on December 23rd, end on December 26th. Click on Save Changes. Notice that there's no year indicator here. So you want to avoid a date range that includes New Year's Eve and New Year's Day, because then the system just puts you in close mode all year, right? You don't have a way to let know, hey, New Year's Eve on this year to New Year's Day on the following year. So instead, you'd have to do like we have here, single day for New Year's Eve, as well, or for New Year's Day, I should say, and then another one for New Year's Eve. Up here, this retreat, this is the advanced option. So I gave it a name, I choose the month, and then in this middle column here, I choose 1st through 5th or last, and then I choose a day of the week. All right, so the first Friday of July, it's Company Picnic Day, we're closed. All right, incoming call handling. Let's move this over here. So these are for your main numbers. Now, right now we're on my open hours, and then these are my options. Right? I have the same options will show up for my lunch hours and after hours and holidays. So we'll go through them individually here. So open hours comes to my virtual receptionist. This is a link, so you can click on it and open up a new window here. All right, so on my left, this is my main menu, right? This is what people press on their phone to navigate through the system. Down here, I've got Add Route. I click on that, it creates a new row. Unfortunately, the pull downs aren't working, but you have 0 through 9, as well as the star key and the default route to choose from here. And then here, you choose, well, let's go up here. So you've got the Smart PBX directory, right? The dial by name directory. You can select a specific user. You can go to an ACD queue. Devices, which means you can go to a specific phone. Right? I can send a call to Bob's phone if I really, really want to. We don't always recommend that just because if that phone doesn't have its own built-in voicemail, then either the person keeps ringing forever or they eventually just hang up and you don't know what they were calling about. You can have it go to a media file. This means that you're playing a greeting, right? So I press option 0 here and I can hear a greeting. Once that greeting file ends, then the call ends. So again, not always recommended unless you mention that in the greeting itself. Next up, we've got groups. Right, so departments. Advanced call flows, this is if you're making use of submenuing. And then lastly, you can send it to a voicemail box. Over here to the right, we've got your greeting options. First up is text-to-speech. You can type in a greeting here. Computerized and robotic voice will repeat your text. You have between 250 and 350 characters to work with. Not words, characters. So keep that in mind. Also, once you click update and then save changes, the system reuses the same file name for your text-to-speech greeting. Right? So in this case, it would be main open hours menu TTS. Let's say tomorrow I come back in here and I type in a new greeting. Update, save changes, it's still going to use that same file name. So the recommendation here is when you create a text-to-speech greeting, when you close out, over here on the left, click on greetings. This shows you all your greetings. Find that new main open hours menu TTS file and rename it to something you'll recognize. So that way you can go back to it if you need to. You can upload your own file. Just need to find a file on your computer. Again, .wav, .mp3, .ogg, recorded in mono, under 1 megabyte. Then you would click Update, then Save and Save Changes. You can choose an existing recording. So this pull down would show all of your existing media files, right? Whether it's a voicemail greeting, main greeting, hold music, whatever, you can pick it from here. So just be careful. That's why you want to use names that are easily recognizable to you. You can record it over the phone. Now, the system starts off by saying, pick up a phone registered to the account. What that really means is pick up a VoIP phone that you have assigned to a user on the account. Right? And it has to be connected, right? It has to be registered. So then you would call into your main number and then enter in this PIN number. This PIN number is specific to this time of day, right? So this is my open hours, so I can only use it during my open hours, right? So if I call in, I think I set my open hours to like 5 o'clock. So if I call in at 8 p.m., oh, I need to change my main greeting, this PIN number won't work because I'm in after hours. After hours has its own PIN number. Also, if you're on an existing account, right, so you're not brand new, you can have a greeting file already in place. When you record it over the phone, you're overwriting that existing file. Right? The file name stays the same, content changes. So if you need to keep that, like you have a default file that you play for most of the year, you want to unassign it first, assign something else, and then call in to record it over the phone. All right, professional recording services. When you click order, it will take you to a new web page, right, so a new tab, hosted by Snap Recordings. They have about 100 voice actors and actresses to choose from. They have different versions of English, Spanish, and French. So that means you can also do multilingual greetings. They have what they refer to as hold treatment, basically a mix of a music file and then a script being read. They bill on their own, right? They're separate from us. They deliver via email, and then you would simply upload your own file. All right, next up we're on settings. So here we've got a number of retries on misdial. This is how many times you're letting the inbound caller make a mistake. Right now it's set to 2, meaning inbound caller can call in, they'll hear the mean greeting, and then they enter a menu selection. Let's say they enter 7. Right? Well, that's invalid. They'll get a message by default that says that's an invalid entry. The greeting will play again. So now they get their first retry. And they hit 9. They get that message saying invalid entry. They hit the greeting again, and then hopefully they hit 0 or 1, right, to get to somebody. If they hit something wrong again, then they're either sent to the default route. So right now that's a smart PBX directory. If I don't have a default route in place, then the call ends. And the reason to not have a default route is because of robodialers. Right? Robodialer can call into your system, hear your greeting play multiple times, right, taking up minutes, and then get to your default route to use up even more time or leave an annoying voicemail. Right, you can click X next to your route to remove it. Right, dialing timeout. This is how much time the system listens or waits, I should say, after it hears a button press. Right, so caller comes in and presses 3. It's going to wait to 10 and says, oh, okay, I'm going to send you to menu option 3, which is going to a queue. Right. I usually recommend people take this down to somewhere under 5. All right, allow outside recording. So this is actually, by default, all of these are off. So let's start that way. All right, so allow outside recording. This is for use with your main greeting, specifically when you want to record it over the phone. Right, so by default, right, it says pick up a phone, register the account, VoIP phone. Let's say you've got that friend with a great radio voice, and but they're not at your facility, so they can't use your VoIP phones. You can instead turn on allow outside recording, so they can call in from their cell phone, for example, you give them the PIN number, they can record a new greeting for you over the phone. All right. Allow dialing extensions. If this is off, when an inbound caller gets to your virtual receptionist, they can only press one of your menu options. They can't enter an extension number. I mean, they can, but the system will say invalid entry and then repeat the greeting. Right, so if you want to allow people to enter extension numbers, you turn those on. All right, so plus playing of invalid entry. Right, so I've mentioned this a couple times. Right, if someone enters a wrong menu option, I press 7. By default, the system says invalid entry, replays the greeting. If you don't want that invalid entry message to play, you just turn this on. And then you would click now. Any changes you made to your main menu, your greetings, or these settings, you have to click save here at the bottom right. And then you're taken back here to incoming call handling. You need to click save changes here as well. Now all your changes have taken effect. Calls will route properly. So lunch hours. Now I'm going to have it go here. This is the live operator answer. This allows you to choose from this pull down. Right, so you can send it to a user, a device, technically a media file, call queue, or probably most, I don't know if it's most common, but probably often used anyway, would be a group. So what this is your live operator option, right? So call comes in, we're offering it to this group for 20 seconds. Someone picks up, they handle the call, right? Probably transfer it to somebody, what have you. If none of them are able to answer the call goes to the virtual receptionist. Now, if we're back under open hours, right, we can still have this option. This virtual receptionist, once it loads, right, it's that same one we were just looking at, right, because I left these two as enabled. However, if we go to lunch hours, I click on virtual receptionist. It's different. Right, so each one of your time slots will have a different virtual receptionist. Right, that way, you can have a different greeting play during your lunch hours than your open hours, for instance. Right, and you can have calls go directly. In this case, I'm sending it to the Smart Directory, but you can send it to a specific user versus the same menu options as before. So I should use this for holidays. This is, again, you're offering it to a user, a group, a device, media file, etc. You also have one additional option, which is right here, is skip to voicemail. So call comes in, goes right to this voicemail box. So inbound customers can leave a voicemail. Again, this is not, I would say it's fairly common for smaller businesses for their holiday setup. After hours, again, you can do any of these options. I'll just highlight this one here. This is the advanced call flows. So I can send it to one of my secondary auto attendants. For some of you, you may not have this because you may not have multiple attendants. Either you don't have it as a feature or you haven't set any up. In which case you would use one of these three, probably something like that. And then we'll click Save Changes. All right, main conference number. All right, you can add from spare numbers. You can buy new numbers. Right? You can have multiple phone numbers if you want. You also have the option for a custom text-to-speech greeting. Again, you're limited to that 250 to 350 character limit. You would just click Enable and then type in a greeting. And then click Save. Now, even if I left this disabled, all right, close this out. Whenever someone calls this conference number, they still hear a greeting. Right? The system will say, "Welcome to the conference. Please enter the conference room number," and then they'll be asked to enter the PIN number. The main fax box, you can only have the one main fax box number. So if this wasn't here, you could buy new or add for spare. Now, unfortunately, the fax box on this test account is broken. But on your account, when you click on this Edit Fax Box, this will open up a window. And there's two fields. The first field is for the inbound notifications. You put in an email address, and anytime a fax comes in, that email address gets an email saying you have received the fax. There'll be a PDF attachment that you can just double click and view the fax. Now, if someone calls your fax box number, right, from say they're from their cell phone, right, then they hear the fax tone, they go, whoa, don't want that, and they hit hang up, that inbound notification email address will get an email saying there was a failed inbound fax attempt. Okay, so basically, at that point, you just want to double check you can look at the call logs. It'd actually be an email also what phone number it came from. Be like, that's, my vendor, they're supposed to be faxing me something. You can double check to see if something happened on their side or have them resend. The second field is for your outbound permissions. So you could put an email address there. You could also put your company domain there, right? So if you own the email domain, at abccleaners.com, that's all. Everyone in your staff has an email address that ends that way. You can just simply put that domain in that second field, and then all your staff members can fax out via email without having to be a user on your Dash account. All right, auto attendance. So this is a plan-specific feature, meaning it's available on some plans, not every plan. If this ends up something you're interested in, please contact our account services team. They can give you your different plan options and let you know what the price difference would be. A couple different use cases. First is if you want to have multiple, let's say you have multiple businesses, right? They have their own phone numbers and their own main greetings, but you want the same staff people to answer calls for your multiple businesses. Then your secondary businesses here, you would set up attendance for, so they could have their own phone number, and then you could set up their own main greeting. The other use case I also mentioned previously was for submenuing. Right? So for instance, your calls come into your virtual receptionist, and in your greeting, you say press 1 for English and 2 for Spanish. And then you put in the routes, 1 goes to the English attendant, 2 goes to the Spanish attendant. So you would come here, you click add new attendant, right? You would put English or Spanish. You give an extension number, you click create attendant. Now, when you do that, if you click on the name, for submenu, you want to make sure it looks like this, available in main menu. Right, so therefore, it can be a menu option on any of your other attendants. If it's a standalone business, say my dog walking business, you want to make sure it looks like this, unavailable in main menu, right? So it's not a submenu option. Your attendants can have their own phone numbers. They can have multiple if you want, and you've got the option for adding for spare or buy new numbers. You can change the extension number if you wish. This is mostly for your staff members, right? Literally, if someone calls the dog walking business and they actually need to talk to my cleaning business, my staff members can transfer them to this extension and get to the right business. And then lastly, you've got the little gear icon, wrench icon. Oops. That was unfortunate. All right, so you see here, I have open hours, lunch hours, after hours, and holidays. This will match the information or the data that we set up under the main number. So your secondary business or your other businesses have to have the same open hours, lunch hours, etc. as the main account. So keep that in mind. And then here you've got the virtual receptionist, and that's your only routing option for your secondary attendants. But Other than that, it's the same, right? You set your menu options, you set up your greeting and your settings, and then you would click Save and Save Changes. Now, if you have businesses, say one business is a Monday to Friday business, other businesses are 7 days a week. That would either require a custom configuration, which may require a one-time setup fee, or separate accounts. In either case, you'd want to talk to our account services team to see which one actually makes more sense for you. All right, next up we have devices. This shows your status of your devices on the account. Green means it's registered, right? So we can send calls to it or get calls from it. Red, unregistered, so we can't send calls to it. And then black means you've turned it off. Up here at the top, that's where you would add a new device. We start with the SIP phone. So this is the physical phone. It's not software. You have these manufacturers to choose from. Right, some have a lot of models. Some don't have a lot. Right. So you would find your manufacturer and the model of phone you're working with. You give it a name, right? Bob's phone, Angela's phone, what have you. And then you need the MAC address of the phone. This is unique to each phone. Oftentimes, it's a sticker on the back of the phone, or if the phone's plugged in, if you click under, usually it's like menu status or basic settings, and then you're looking for MAC. And then you enter that information here. You click on Create Device. And the only other thing you would need to do is assign that device to a user. So it has a call listed here. And you do that under the users section. Now, in terms of the dashboard, that's it. On the phone, you need to access the phone's web user interface, the web UI. And you do that by finding the phone's IP address, right? So under those basic settings, it should have IP or IPv4. You enter that into a web browser's address bar on a computer that's on the same network. Hopefully that gets you to the login screen for that phone. And then you need to get to the auto provisioning section of that phone's UI to enter in a URL. I don't have that URL memorized or where exactly it is for each manufacturer, but we have a document on the support pages. So go to virtualpbx.com, click on support. About a third of the way down on the right-hand side under VoIP phones, you're looking for the document called Auto Provisioning Phones. It's going to have screenshots for each of these manufacturers, as well as the proper syntax for that URL, and usually some settings that they want you to verify are set the correct way. You follow those instructions, you usually click Save or Confirm or Update, and then Auto Provision Now, usually one of the options there. That tells the phone, okay, go out to this URL, get your config file. Downloads it, it's going to reboot, usually 2 to 3 times. After it's done rebooting, so you just want to leave it alone. Go get something to drink, what have you, come back. It should show up as green device on here, and then you can make and receive calls from it. But cell phone and landline are essentially the same because they just have a different label. Again, you give a name, right? Mary's phone. And then you put +1 area code and phone number in the phone number field, and then you click on Create Device. Now, when we send a call to a cell phone or landline, right, so it's going to look like this, right? I gave it a name. Here's that phone number. I'm going to go to the advanced options. This is a default setup here. So, call comes in, it's being offered to my cell phone, right? My phone rings. I pick up. I'm going to hear, this is a forwarded call. Please press 1. When I press 1, I'm telling the system, yes, I'm here, and yes, I want to take this call. It hears that tone, it connects the call, I start talking to my customer. Now, I could set up a cell phone or landline to go to an automated answering service, let's say to handle my calls for after hours. Well, my automated answering services out there in the world, they can't press 1 to accept the phone call, right? Because there's not a person, it's going to a computer essentially. So in that instance, on that device, I come under the advanced options, right? and I put a check mark here in front of allow use of cell phone's voicemail. So what that means is when I send the call to my automated answering service, we hear that pickup tone, and the VirtualPBX system will automatically connect the call. Right, here's that pickup tone, connects the call. My automated answering service can then handle the call. If this is my cell phone and I have it set up this way, if I'm not able to answer my call for whatever reason, but my cell phone voicemail does, right, that's a pickup tone. So that inbound call ends up on my cell phone's voicemail. Some of our customers love that, and that's exactly what they want. Others do not want. Like, no, 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 keep those separate. So just to keep that in mind. All right, the other setting that can come into play is this one, keep original caller ID. So customer Mary comes into your system, sends, and the call eventually reaches your cell phone, right? Your cell phone's ringing, you look at it, the caller ID, and you're like, I don't know that number. I'm tired of hearing about my auto warranty. So you let the call go to voicemail. Hopefully you're able to, speak to Mary later and complete the, transaction. If I uncheck this, right, then, and click Save Changes, now when customer Mary calls me, I don't see Mary's phone number on my cell phone. Instead, I see my main company number. And what I mean by that, right here under their dashboard, the caller ID, whatever phone number I selected here, that's the phone number I would see on my cell phone when I have that unchecked. So it's a way for you to quickly identify a work call coming to your cell phone or landline. All right, soft phone. First, you get this little warning message here, basically saying, hey, wireless VoIP technology, your E911 may not match up to your current location. So just make sure you read and understand that. Then you click close. And here it sets up as a third-party soft phone, right? So you're using a cell phone application from Counterpath. Or your VoIP phone, your physical VoIP phone didn't show up under the SIP phone list. You give it you give the device a name, and then the SIP username, right here, you'd want to copy and paste that someplace. The SIP password, right, if you click on the box, it reveals a password, so then you can copy and paste that. And then you would copy and paste the realm. You would use those 3 pieces of information to program your soft phone application. Now, we do have some guides for specific soft phones out there and on the support pages, but there are a ton of soft phone applications on the market, so we don't have guides for nearly that many. Maybe 5, I want to say. Anyway, you would click on Create Device, assign it to a user, program the device, and then hopefully it shows up as a green device here. You can also set up a web phone here. However, the web phone, to log into the web phone, you need to use dash credentials. So creating it here on the devices page, it's not associated with anyone. So I usually find it easier to create it on the user page. But you would just give it a name and create device. Greetings. This is your greetings manager. This shows all your greeting files on the account. So you got the name here. The source upload means you uploaded the file. TTS means it's text to speech. And then recording means you recorded it over the phone. You can download a specific file over here on the right. And then you can also edit the file by clicking the wrench icon. And then this is where you can delete the greeting, or you can change the name to something you would recognize. You can also add upload a greeting here. Again, just give it a name, find the file on your computer. You would click on Create Greeting, and then it would upload it and add it to this list. Groups. or ring groups or hunt groups. These are departments. You can create a group up here at the top by clicking Add Group. You give it a name and an extension number. And then you click and drag your staff members that you want to be in the group, and you would click on Create Group. Once a group is created, you can click on the name. You can change the name at any time. And then you've got the group call attempts. This is how many times the system will offer calls to your group members. So I have it set at 2. Over here to the far right, there's little up and down arrow icons. So you click up or down to increase or decrease that as necessary. And then you would click on Save Changes. All right, then if you click on the members box, here's my staff members. Along the top here, these are timestamps. This last one you can edit. The default for a new group is 120 seconds. This one was changed to 240. These are sliders, so you can click and drag the slider. So I'm going to set up what's called blast ringing or ring all. Basically, in this scenario, I'm saying a call comes in, it's going to ring all my staff members. Right, so all their phones ring until someone picks up. Now, one thing to keep in mind about calls coming into a group, it's going to ring everyone's phone. Meaning, let's say Aaron here. Oops. If your staff member has multiple phones associated with their user, and they're in a group, all of their phones will ring. Right. Additionally, there's a user feature called Follow Me. Group calls and actually ACD queue calls ignore the Follow Me settings. It's only going to, so in the case of groups, it's going to ring all their phones no matter what, assuming they're registered. Now, up here, I have the top two. I have this option here to distribute, so I can have it ring in order. Right, so ring the first person, second person, etc. If I don't like this order or I need to change it, so let's say Aaron has a particular project I want him to work on, I can click and drag and move him to the bottom. All right. Say Michael has finished his project, so he can be at the top. I can do things like this. Now, I haven't actually changed the order yet. Right? It's still going to ring Aaron first, right? Then go to Brandon, then Gian, right? Then Jade, then Michael, and then Jean. But if I click Distribute up here at the top, boom, now it's going to start with Michael, then Jan, etc., and go down. So these are the routing options you have available. Now, again, you can always adjust the ringing times. So if I want, I can have more overlap between my staff members. Now for groups, users can accept calls on cell phones, landlines, or VoIP devices. But again, all their phones will ring. Groups can have extensions. They can have multiple extensions if you want, right? You can add an extension and enter in another extension number. Groups can also have their own phone numbers. Right? I can either buy it from new or add spare. One thing to keep in mind about a phone number on a group, this phone number does not follow your open hours. It's available 24 hours a day. So if you have staff members with their personal cell phones, they can get calls from a group in the middle of the night. And then lastly, we've got group features. First up is ringback. So if you enable this, you can upload a media file, .wav, .mp3, .ogg, recorded in mono under 1 megabyte. You can click on Save Changes. Now this file replaces the ringing sound, right? So call comes in to the group. The inbound call will show ringing by default as we're trying to reach the various members of the group. Now that ringing sound is basically acknowledgement from the receiving device that yes, we're trying to reach out to it. If for some reason, right, you enable this, the ringback feature, so we're sending calls out to the receiving device. If that receiving device actually doesn't return that ringing sound to us, the ringback file does not play. That can be for like a landline that has call waiting enabled, right? Or no, does not have call waiting enabled, excuse me. So technically it's busy. Well, that's not actually ringback, the ringing tone, so we're not playing a file. All right, next action, probably the most important. It's you're basically saying, hey, if you enable this, you said if no one picks up, what do you want to do with the call? This is a pull down. You can send it back to your virtual receptionist. You can send it to one of your other attendants. You can send it to a call queue if you have one. You can send it to a specific device, right? A specific phone number, phone. Oops. You can send it to one of your ring groups, so one of your other groups. Right? You can't send it to itself, actually. Yeah, you can. You can send it to a specific user, or you can send it to a voicemail box. Allow call forward. If you enable this, that means your users can make use of call forwarding. So if they're not at their normal desk phone, they can forward calls to their cell phone, for example. And then caller ID prepend. This is either text or numbers you put in front of the caller ID that shows up on your VoIP phones. Basically gives your staff members a heads up about what the call is about. All right, numbers. Numbers in use, these are all the phone numbers you're using and where they're going. Right, so a number going specific to a user, for example. Call flows, this can be going to either an ACD queue or your fax box. Right, you see here, I've got a ring group. Spare numbers, shows your numbers you're not using. Now, let's say I want to reduce my bill because I have too many phone numbers. I'll keep an eye up here where it says numbers. And I can click the little box here in front of them. And then I can click delete, right? The delete option shows up once you click on the check boxes. It says, are you sure? Confirm the deletion. And deletion successful. Now I have less phone numbers on my account. So I'm saving a little money per month. Under spare numbers, right? You can buy numbers here. So I can add numbers back to the account. Right? Local or toll free, just like everywhere else. In this case, they just go to your spare number list. They don't go directly anywhere. Port. So porting is moving a number from one carrier to another. So like from, say, Comcast to VirtualPBX. You start the port process. You give it a name. You choose US local or toll free. Click next. I want you to upload a copy of your bill. Then it's going to ask you to enter in your billing address, as well as the billing telephone number and the account number. Then it asks what numbers you're porting. You just type them in. Then there's 4 checkboxes it wants you to check. Oh, it lets you download a blank letter of agency or LOA, and then you can upload a completed and signed LOA. And then you click submit, and it submits those 2 documents. You should get an email right away once the submission is completed saying you have submitted your port request. By the next business day, you should get a second email from our porting team saying, yes, we've gotten it. Basically, yes, we reviewed the documents and make sure everything looked appropriate. And the port process has officially started in terms of we've submitted it to the other carrier. If for some reason you don't get those 2 emails, or like you get an error message saying the files weren't submitted, you can email the documents to porting, right? So porting@virtualpbx.com. They can still handle the port request that way. In terms of the letter of agency, right, the LOA, it's going to ask you for your company information. So like your company name and your address. That information should match what your current carrier has on file. So in this case, Comcast. Right, whatever Comcast has on file for you and for that phone number is what should show up on the LOA. It does need to be signed. Whether that's you printed it out, signed it, and scanned it back in, or you have a digital signature file that you just put in the signature field. Right? Simply typing in your name twice will get rejected every time. For local numbers, ports can be anywhere from 1 business day to a couple weeks, depending on if there's any errors or what have you. Local or toll-free numbers take about 3 to 5 business days, just because there's more regulation involved with toll-free numbers. If there's an error, right, so we get a rejection notice from the other carrier, we will let you know. Right? We send you an email basically describing what the error was. We don't always get a lot of detail. Like we can get address mismatch. We don't get much more than that, right? If we're lucky, the other carrier says the street number was wrong, right? Or the zip code was wrong, right? That's about the finest level of detail we're gonna get. So whatever details we get, we do pass on. Then you need to confirm with your current carrier what it's supposed to be. Let us know, and then we can resubmit. All right, users. Up here at the top, blue suit person icon, that's a system admin, right? So they can do all the things we're talking about. Little gray person icon, standard user. You can add users by clicking add user up here at the top. Right, you just fill out the form. So we need their first and last name. The email address used for login needs to be unique for each user. I.e., you can't reuse an email address for multiple users. And then you create a password for them. And then you enter in an extension number. Now I started this account with extension 1000, so it's saying the next available in that series is 1008. You can delete that and type in whatever you want. So like say you started a new business and you want everyone associated with that new business to have extension, starting with 4, right? So 4010. All right, then we have the first option here, right? Create a voicemail box for this user. This automatically enables the user feature voicemail. And that voicemail box is intrinsically tied to the user. So like if I create this user and then I assign a VoIP phone to them, that user can pick up their VoIP phone, assuming it's registered, hit *98, and that automatically logs them into their voicemail box. The first time they do that, the system will prompt them to create a PIN number for that voicemail box, as well as then prompt them to record a voicemail greeting. Right. Include in the company directory. Basically, if you want them to be in the Smart PBX directory, you can change this later. Then we've got send emails to an alternate address. So by default, when you create a user, let's say they get a voicemail notification. It's going to go to the email address used for login. Same with the password recovery. However, if you put a check mark here for send email to an alternate address, you put a new email address here, those emails instead go to this other address and not the email address used for login. And again, you can change this later. And to me, the other most important one is send credentials to the user, meaning it sends them an email with the login information. If you just need to create one user, you just click on Create User. Otherwise, create user and add another. Once a user is created, you can click on their name. You can change their name here. Right? You can change their login address or password, right? Change their credentials. You also have the option here, to send them the password reset email directly. You can change the voicemail box PIN. Just enter 4 digits. Now, again, for your VoIP users, you don't even have to do this, right? You can just have them do the *98 thing. For your cell phone or landline users, you would need to create a voicemail box PIN number. Here's the option to send to an alternate address. And then here is the option to be in the Smart PBX directory. Over here on the right, this is where this pull down allows you to make a user an admin or an admin to a user. Then we've got the time zone, right? Just do a search for a major city. Then we've got the display language. English, French, German, or Russian are the options. And this is what the dash web pages will display for this particular user. ringing timeout. This is how much time, by default, the system will try to reach the devices on the user, which is 20 seconds, typically plenty of time for a VoIP phone or a landline. If a user is only going to be using a cell phone, you're going to want to change this to at least 45 seconds, if not 60 seconds. It simply takes longer to route a call to a cell phone than it does, say, to a landline. Right? In terms of how PBX system works, any PBX system, right? Call comes into it, routing call to the user. The user has a landline, right? We send it to the landline telecom. They go, we know exactly where that is, and sends it straight to the device. Right? Versus user has a cell phone, call comes in, we send it to the cell phone telecom. They say, hold up a second, we need to find them first. Right? Pings the cell phone towers, finds you, says, all right, now send that call. So that time, in terms of trying to find you, is why you would need to have a longer routing or ringing timeout for a cell phone user than a landline user. You have the main extension and the caller ID privacy, which typically leaving those at default is fine. Users can have multiple extensions if you want them to. For instance, like a manager has lost a staff member, and you want to make sure those voicemails are still recovered, or any like outstanding business is handled. Right? Users can have their own phone numbers. Right? You can buy numbers, add from spare. You get the little gear icon here, so you can do the caller ID, etc. Now, just like in groups, this phone number works 24/7. So that's something to keep in mind. Actually, we'll get the right here. Right, so you can add devices to a user. Right? You can either choose from an existing device that's not in use, or you can check new device. Right? You got SIP phone. Right? Same process as before. It just saves you the step of having to assign it to a user. The big difference here is for soft phone. Right? You get that warning message. Right, starts you off with as third party, but you notice down here we have a use third party application. It's grayed out, a little hard to see. It's below the view configuration guide. But if you click on this, it flips it. It says use VirtualPBX application. So now you just need to give it a device name. You click on create device, and then you click on save changes. When you do that, this user will get an email with their login information for the VirtualPBX soft phone app. Then they can just download the app to either their iPhone or Android phone, or Windows or Mac PC. They can log in, make and receive calls. And likewise, I find it easier to add the web phone directly to a user. Give it a name, click on create device, click on save changes, and since it's already on the user, Jay can then use his dash login to make use of the web phone. All right, user features. If a user has a phone number, they can make use of the caller ID number. So here, let's go back up to Aaron here. Turn on caller ID, I enable it. I can select his phone number, and I click Save Changes. So now when Aaron makes outbound calls from his VoIP phone, it's going to show his phone number. Right, the 702 phone number versus the 408 number I have under the main company caller ID. Call forwarding, you have off, right? Not using it. On means you are forwarding calls all the time. And failover mode. Failover mode is for your VoIP phone users, right? When the system detects that a VoIP phone has become deregistered or unregistered, and a call happens to come into that user at that time, the system will automatically send it to their forwarding device. Now, the forwarding device should not already be added as a device on the user, right? This is something they use as a backup, not every day. And your users can set up the call forwarding themselves via either the user portal or feature codes. but you just choose desk phone or mobile, put +1 area code and phone number, click on Save Changes. Hot desking is a VoIP-related feature. You enable this and you create a hot desk ID. So if you're using 4-digit extensions, I just say make use of their extension number. Now I'll just use 1000. You will click on Save Changes. If you want, you can put a PIN number. That's optional. So how this is used. In a post-pandemic world, or currently pandemic world, where a lot of companies are going with a hybrid scheduling, right? So you're only in the office for a couple of days of the week. So I come into the office today on Tuesday. I sit at desk number 7. I pick up the VoIP phone. I hit *11. That turns on hot desking on that phone. It asks me for my hot desk ID. I enter that, and it then tells me calls will now be sent to this device. So now any call coming to my user, whether I'm in a queue or a group or comes directly to my user, what have you, it's going to ring at the phone I'm sitting at. At the end of my day, I pick up the phone, I hit *12 to turn off hot desking. I go home. Next time I come in the office, let's say that's Friday, someone's already sitting at desk number 7. Right? I say, hey, Angela, how's it going? I keep walking down, and I sit at desk number 20 and do the same thing. *11, enter hot desk ID, and now I'm getting calls at this other desk I'm sitting at. All right, voicemail box, right, was enabled because I created it with the user. Let's get there. This is the default look, right? So voicemail to email, and you get an attachment via email. So basically, call comes in, and leave a voicemail for Brandon here. He'll get an email, and in the email, right, there'll be, information about the call, right? The call, the phone number, the date, and the time. There'll be an attachment he can just double click on his computer and listen to the voicemail. Now, voicemail boxes can hold up to 100 messages. So let's say Brandon doesn't want to bother with going back through and deleting voicemails from his voicemail box. I can click this one here, which basically says after I send out that email, delete the voicemail from the system. So that way I don't worry about that voicemail box's full message, and everyone should always be able to leave a message. Also, most computers have quite a bit of storage available these days, so Brandon could create a separate folder for his voicemails and keep them all archived if he wants to. Transcription is a plan-specific feature. Basically, the system listens to the voicemail and tries to type it out in the body of the email that it sends to you. If that's something you're interested in, you're going to want to talk to our account services team. Fax box. Users can have their own individual fax boxes if you want them to. If you decide to do this, I do recommend making sure that you select a phone number, right? Either select a span number or by a phone number. If you have a phone number assigned to a user's fax box, they can both receive and send faxes. Right? No issue with it. If you choose this last option, which is assign a new extension, oops, yeah. Right, so let's just put in an extension number. So that means this fax box can only receive faxes. And that means Brandon can only ever receive faxes he's not able to send out. What happens is when you create a fax box on a user, and that user tries to fax out, the system checks first to see if they have a fax box. If they do, it uses the user fax box information. So if Brandon only has an extension number, the caller ID it uses is his extension number. Well, that's not a valid outbound caller ID. No other carrier is going to accept that. The fax will fail. Versus if I assigned a phone number, it would use that phone number as his outbound fax ID. Likewise, if I didn't have a fax box on the user, right, just relying on the main fax box, then the system says, oh, no user fax box, I'll use the main fax box information. Conference bridge. So if you enable Conference Bridge on a user as an admin, the only thing you need to do is create a personal PIN number for them. The user can change the PIN number for them later. or themselves later via the user portal. Follow Me. This is a feature for users with multiple devices. And here, actually, when you first set it up, or first enable it, this is what it looks like. It's basically saying, the system's asking you, which devices do you want to use, right? When you uncheck them, you can adjust the sliders. You've got your total ring time up here along the top, 120 seconds. Just like in groups, you can change the order by clicking and dragging, and then click distribute. And then save changes. Music on hold. Users can have their own on-hold music, although as an admin, you're the one who has to assign it to them. First, you have to enable it. Upload .ogg.mp3.wav, recorded in mono under 1 megabyte. Click the little up arrow icon and then click Save Changes. Call recording. So when it's first enabled, it looks like this, meaning the system is asking you what kind of calls you want to record. So inbound internal, coworker Bob called. Right, inbound external, customer Mary called. Outbound internal means called coworker Bob. Right, outbound external means I called customer Mary. Then you click on Save Changes. You don't have to do all four. You can do any mixture that you want. Now, every account comes with storage available. It's going to range depending on the plan you have and how old that plan may be. If you go over your storage limit, you will basically get like another gigabyte added at, actually I forget what the storage or additional storage is. You're going to want to check with account services to verify what the actual pricing is. Oh, and then you have the option here to turn a user on Do Not Disturb, meaning you know they're not available, so just have calls go to them go to voicemail. Voicemail boxes. So it shows you your list of voicemail boxes. If there's data in this user column, that means it's a user voicemail box. We strongly recommend against deleting user voicemail boxes because you can't reattach them directly to the user. Right? You'd have to delete the user and recreate them. If you need to create your own voicemail boxes, like for your ring groups, for example, you click here at the top, Add Voicemail Box. You give it a name, a voicemail box number, and a PIN number. You click on Create Voicemail Box. For any voicemail box, you can click on the little wrench icon here. So you can change the name, the voicemail number, the PIN number if you need to. Under Advanced, so let's say that this was a manually created voicemail box. I would want to go to the greetings. So I can either upload a media file here or use the pull down to select a default voicemail greeting for this voicemail box. The temporary one, this is for your out of office or vacation voicemail greeting, right? So you want a file to play temporarily, and then when you set this back to none, your media file will be back to playing, right? So it allows you to have two different greetings, and you can switch one off as necessary. Recipients. So your user voicemail boxes have a built-in recipient, right? The email address used for login. For your manually created voicemail boxes, you do need to add at least one, well, it's recommended you add one voice recipient. So that way you put an email address here and click on Save Changes or add to add multiple. So that way someone's notified that this voicemail box is getting voicemails, right? Because again, it can only hold up to 100 messages. And then we got the options. So for a manually created voicemail box, once they have a voicemail greeting and a recipient, you can click here in front of Already Set Up because it's all good to go. And then beyond that, you want to look down here, right? You want to attach the messages to email, and you also have the option here to delete after notification, right? So the voicemail box doesn't get full. If you have transcription on your plan, then you can transcribe here. And then you also have announce only mode. This is if you're going to have a voicemail box that's just designed to give out a message, right? Hours of operation. It's never going to be able, it won't be able to accept an inbound voicemail, so you don't have to worry about it getting full. Advanced routing. This is for a feature called Direct Inward System Access, or DISA. And what that does is allows you to call in from a cell phone or landline, log in over the phone, and then make an outbound call. When you make that outbound call, it won't be your cell phone number that shows up as the caller ID. It'll be your main company number. So you click here, and then you click Enable. And by default, it creates a PIN number for you. Now, just like this, you could then set it up as a main menu option under your virtual receptionist. Right? You don't have to give it as part of your greeting, right? Just your staff members would know, oh, press option 9, that gets me to DISA. And then they enter the PIN number, they hear dial tone, they dial out. You can also click Edit Settings, so you can change the PIN number, but you can also add an extension number. And you click Save Changes. So now your staff members, when they call in, right, so they have to get to a main number that goes to an auto attendant, right, so they hear a greeting. Now they just enter a PIN, the extension number, and then the PIN number, and then they dial out. And they don't have to do a menu option. Now, that the outbound caller ID for making calls this way, again, that's under that dashboard. And then this would be this company caller ID. Now, DISA may not be enabled on your account, and that is because it is a way for people to, someone can figure out your PIN number and make outbound calls on your account without you knowing about it right away, which means that can cause an overage on your bill, and you'll be pretty upset by that, especially if it's quite a lot. So if you do want that enabled, you need to send a request to our account services team or support team, and they can get that enabled. And then you can set it up. The call logs, this shows your call activity on your account. So today I've had one outbound call on my account, on this account here. I can change it to this week. See, I've had 2 calls go out. Right, I can go to this month. And now I can see I have more calls. Little green arrow to the right, that means that's the call that came into the system. All right, little yellow arrow to the left means that's an outbound call. If I click on this one here, you see here, see the call came in, and it's offered to these devices. And in this case, the call connected and ended normally. Right, if you see something beyond normal clearing, then something may have gone wrong. That could be like on a VoIP phone, there could have been some sort of network error. Just something to be aware of. If you click on the little fire hydrant icon here, right, that creates an email and that will go to support@virtualpbx.com. In the body of the email, you do want to type in what happened, like your phone didn't actually ring, or you had bad audio quality, or what have you. That should, our support team will then reach back out to you and probably make some test calls to see if they can replicate. Now, you can always download these files. That's not the custom, so you can set your own date range. In terms of the call logs, you can go back up to 1 year. Our engineers can go a little bit further back. I want to say they can go 18 months back, but that's the maximum. So if you need to keep your call log data, or you think you might need it later, you probably want to download. I would suggest like once a month. That way you can just label, August 2021 calls, and it's just an easy labeling structure. All right, feature codes. I've already mentioned a couple of these, but these are basically shortcuts for your VoIP phone users to access different features of the account. These are also available on our website, so you don't have to log in to look at them. Also on the website, under the support pages, there is a document called the Phone Commands Cheat Sheet. It's a single-page PDF. It has all of these as well as a brief description. All right, so that's been the dashboard. Next up, we've got ACD queues. ACD stands for Automatic Call Distribution. It's a call center feature. There's also ACD Queues Pro. We're looking at the standard version. So these are available on some plans, and they're add-on features. So if your plan requires you to upgrade plans to be able to get queues, right, that's going to increase your bill. But then you have that additional add-on fee of the queues themselves. Something to be aware of. All right. Something to keep in mind is currently on queues, your staff members are only going to be able to accept calls on a VoIP device, right? If you need to use cell phones or landlines, then you're pretty much stuck using groups. But we can click on Add New Queue. You give it a name. You select either an extension number or a phone number. Then we go to the queue configuration itself. The queue routing strategy. So round robin it'll equal out over time. There is a ring all. On standard queues, there's ring all, which means it rings everybody at once. The pro queues don't have ring all. I'm not sure why. Then there is, there is most idle. Right, so whoever's been waiting for a call the longest gets the next call that comes in. There's least calls, which means the least amount of connected calls. Right, so let's say Mary has 5 connected calls, Bob has 2. The next call that comes in goes to Bob. And then there's least offers, which is the combination of missed and connected calls. So let's say in that scenario with Mary had 5 connected calls and 2 connected calls for Bob. Let's say Bob's been offered 20 calls, but Mary's only been offered 5. Under least offers, the next call goes to Mary. Now, say Bob and Mary have been in the queue for a couple hours, and then Dylan starts his shift. He logs in. Under least calls or least offers, he gets the next call that comes in until he matches one of the other 2. All right, hold treatment. Basically, upload a music file. Right, .wav, .mp3, .ogg, recorded in mono, under 1 megabyte. 1 megabyte MP3 is roughly 5 minutes. Queue timeout, measured in seconds, is how much time an inbound caller can wait on hold. Queue call limit, this is how many people can wait on hold. This is on top of people who are already speaking to staff members. Okay, timeout immediately if empty. If you enable this, that means if you have no staff members logged in and a call comes in, the system will treat them as if they've already hit this 3,600 second timeout. Escalation queue. You would select another queue. Basically means all your staff members are busy. Calls are waiting in this queue. You can send it to a second queue. And then escalation call flow after timeout. So after that 3,600 seconds, what do you want to do? None means the call will end. Advanced call flows, you're sending it to one of your other attendants. You can send it to a specific device, right, a specific phone. You can send it back to your smart PBX directory, dial by name directory. You can send it to one of your ring groups. You can send it to a media file. Again, once the media file plays, the call ends. The call ends. You can send it to a specific user or a voicemail box. Now, if you're making use of escalation queues, right, the system keeps track of which queue the call originally came in on. So let's say call comes in, went to an escalation queue. When it hits that 3,600 seconds from when the call first entered the first queue, it goes, okay, timer's up, and then it sends it to the escalation call flow of that first queue, not whatever queue it happens to be in at that time. All right, agent settings, agent recovery time. This is how much time the system will wait before it offers an agent a second call from a queue, right? So they're on one call, the call ends. If you set this to say 20 seconds, the system will wait 20 seconds before it offers them a second call. Force away on reject or missed. If this is enabled, if an agent misses a call, the system puts them away mode until the user puts themselves back in ready. And then agent connect timeout measured in seconds. Default is 20 because they can only be using VoIP phones, which is typically plenty of time. And then you would click on create queue. Once you've created a queue or multiple queues, over here on the left, you want to click on members, that little person with the headset icon. And here, these are my staff members who I can put into a queue. If I click up here on manage members, my list on the left, these are people I can add to be in queues. Right now, they cannot enter the queues at all. And then the people on the right are the people that are in my queues. Right, I can select someone and then add them as a member. And so now that test user can now be assigned to a queue. So once you have members under your queue list, then you can go back to the queues icon. You click on a queue here. Right, you can add agents. And you can tell I've already added 10 agents, but basically you can click and drag people over to be in your queue or remove them as necessary. And then click on Save Changes. Once you've added agents to a queue, you can click on Add Managers. And so from those staff members that you've already added, if you move them over to the right, they can be the queue managers, or you can move them to the left if they're no longer a queue manager. Click on Save Changes. All right, for your staff members, once they've been assigned to queues, right, when they log in the dash, they'll have an option to get to ACD queues. Then up here at the top, they click on Begin Session. Now, by default, they start off on a standard queue in away mode. What they want to do next is click on this little phone icon here, and then select their VoIP device that they want to take calls on. They do need to select the device. So then I select my device, and then when I'm ready to take calls, I mark myself as ready. And now my little bar turns green, and I'm ready to take a call that comes into the queue. Right, so when I mark myself away, my bar turns red. If I'm on an inbound call that came into the queue, my bar will turn blue. If I'm on an outbound call or external call, the bar will turn yellow. And if I'm on a wrap-up time, the bar turns gold. Right, so then at lunchtime, right, I would mark myself away. Right, end of my day, I would click End Session. For the pro queues, you also have an additional icon here for performance. This allows a manager to compare agents in terms of their call performance. Right, so they can see like, Bob and Mary, how many missed calls, how many connected calls, etc. The pro queues also allow managers to eavesdrop in on a call, whisper right to the staff member to help them handle a call, or barge in if a call gets out of control. Right, Blacklist. This is available on all plans. It's included. This allows you to create a list of phone numbers that you are blocking from reaching your system. You would click on Edit Blacklist. If you don't have a list, you just click on Add. Otherwise, you choose an existing list. For a new list, you can give it a name, and then you have to decide if you're blocking anonymous. This means if a call comes in and we don't get valid caller ID, if you turn this on, they're going to get a busy tone, right? They're not going to be able to connect, meaning you're only allowing calls with valid inbound caller ID to come through. Beyond that, you would just click on Add Number, put +1 area code and phone number, and keep clicking Add for each phone number you want to add. When you're done, click on Save. Then you go back to Settings, and you want to make sure that your list, your active lists, are over here on the right under Selected. So these 3 lists, any phone number on them, when they try to call my system, they're going to get busy tone. They're not going to connect. And then if you had to move the list over, go ahead and click Update, and you're good to go. Next up, we've got Dynamic Caller ID. This is a plan-specific feature. Basically, this allows VoIP phone users to change their outbound caller ID. But first, you have to create some rules for that. So you would click Create New Rule. I'm just going to edit this existing one here. So what I've done here is you give it a name. You choose a phone number that's on your account. Right? So it has to be either on a user, one of your main numbers, whatever. And then you create a feature code. Right? So in this case, *71. So VoIP phone user picks up their VoIP phone, hits *71, then dials area code and phone number, and whoever they're calling, they're going to display this 918 phone number as their outbound caller ID. Right? And then I would click Save Changes. The other way you can do it is, oops, wrong button. Here for the 408 area code, right, I said, okay, use this phone number, and whenever my VoIP phone users dial 408, the system will automatically switch their caller ID to show this 408 phone number. Right, so it looks like a local call to the person they're calling. Faxes takes you to the fax manager. This is a built-in feature, but you can look at any fax box on the account. You can see their inbound faxes in this case, the date and time received, the phone number it came from, who it went to, the pages. You can download the file. You can put a check mark and remove the file or change its status. Outbound faxes, similar, right? But you can then view a user's outbound faxing history. You can see they had 2 successful fax out on the 5th, right? Coming from this particular phone number, went to this phone number here. One was 1 page, one was 7. I can download the file if I want to. The email to fax logs, this will show account-wide any kind of email to fax log error. So if there's data here on the right-hand side under details, there'll be a little eyeball icon. If you click on that, that will give you further details. Things like the wrong email address was used would typically come up. Monitor, this is another plan-specific feature. So on some plans, not all. This allows you to see the status of your users or the devices. Right, you can see everything, or who's available, who's busy. Over here, it's kind of hard to see, but you can see your active inbound calls and who they're going to, as well as your parked calls and the parking spot number. Number Manager takes you back to your spare numbers, so you can add spare numbers, by numbers, etc. The Recording Manager would take you to recordings.virtualpbx.com, so you can view your recordings, download them, delete them, etc. Reports will take you to reports.virtualpbx.com. This is for advanced reporting. This is a plan-specific feature as well, but this allows you to create your own reports and gives you a lot more detail than the call logs would. Voicemails takes you to the voicemail manager. This is included. Right, so no additional upgrades necessary. You can go to any user's voicemail box and you can see what messages they have. If they have messages here, like you can put a check mark in front of a voicemail, and as an admin, you can send it to a different user. Right? Oh, that voicemail doesn't belong with him or her. Likewise, you can change the status. You can play back a message, etc. Webhooks. This allows you to link Dash to other software. You would just create a new webhook. If this is something you're interested in, you're going to want to talk to our sales team as they have more information on this. You can also see examples of things we have done at developer.virtualpbx.com. But essentially, you have to be able to create this, essentially follow the form and see that it works. I don't have a lot of experience with it, so I can't really tell you what to do. I would definitely recommend looking at the developer.virtualpbx.com. And then lastly, we have the user portal. Every user on your account has their own user portal. As an admin, you cannot get to someone else's user portal. However, you don't need to because you have access to everything. So a user can see their own voicemails, right? They'd see the date, the time, who it came from, what phone number they called. They can play back the message. They can delete the message. They can view their call history, so both inbound, outbound, as well as exchange the dates if necessary. They can see their fax history. Then they can change the date range. So you see I've got one inbound and two outbound. The contact list, this is your Dash contact list, right? So you'll see all the other users, the ring groups, the queues, etc. This is not something a user can add to, right? So your salespeople wouldn't be able to add their client list. Conference tab. Over here on the right, this is where your users can update their moderator pin and their participant pin numbers, right? And then they have the option, do people join muted? Do people join deafened? As well, are you playing entry and exit tones? You can invite other Dash users to a conference. You can lock your conference. You can mute everybody. You can unmute everybody. You can end the conference. Also, when you're in a conference, you can mute a specific participant as well as kick a specific participant. And then settings and devices. This is where your users would set up their own call forwarding. Put a check mark here. Choose where they're forwarding to, or enter the +1 area code and phone number, and then click on save. And that is everything. Go back to the dashboard here. And I don't see any questions, and I haven't seen any pop up. So I'm going to go ahead and end the stream. Again, we'll be here next Tuesday, 10 a.m. Pacific. And I thank you for your time today.